I discovered that there were some of these adhesion molecules that were responsible for viruses getting into cells. They were like the doorway that viruses use to get into cells. There has to be a way that you can prevent yourself from getting sick. We have natural defenses in our nose and throat that can protect us, and that's why some people are more prone to getting sick than others. Every single virus that's going to make you sick, the first thing it has to do is bind to a receptor and get inside the cell where it can start multiplying. But if it could never enter the cell in the first place, it would never infect and you wouldn't get sick. It will actually deplete glutathione levels in your liver.
Tylenol is doing that.
Yeah, Tylenol is doing that.
I knew it was destroying the liver. I didn't know it was depleting glutathione to that level. I hear a lot of people saying, you want to boost your immune system, boost your immune system. Is that actually true?
Definitely balance and support it. But when we're talking about the innate immune system, we definitely want to boost it. The reason that our immunity is going down, we have inflammation and all that. One of the reasons is that people are eating less animal fat. How people in Nordic countries, in the Northern Hemisphere, how they survive, keep their health despite having less sunlight is through eating a lot of animal fat.
The 5 biggest mistakes people make when trying to improve their immune system. What are the mistakes people are making? Dr. Nazlie, welcome to Miami and welcome to the Keto Kamp Podcast.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Ben.
You're a fellow Eastern coast of United States sort of person, came down from New York City. Thank you for doing that. I love the commitment. Shout out to Brett and Harrison from the Meat Mafia podcast who connected us. And I've been using your products. BioVanta, I just took some with me during my travels in Utah. I want to talk about that. But you saw a need for this space. I want to know, you and your husband saw something in this space, a void that you wanted to fill. So we're going to talk all about the immune system today, inflammation, acute versus chronic, and so much more. But let's go back to the idea and why you started this, why you decided to get into this space, you and your husband.
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. You don't have to pull my leg to come all the way to Miami to get some vitamin D, which is the best way from the sun.
Yes.
From New York City. So, and we talked about, I love the sun just like you. So I'm glad to be here. And you're a very exciting speaker. So I'm happy to thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And yes, shout out to Brett and Harrison, two very good friends of both of ours. So yeah, how I got into this. Well, I did my PhD in molecular neuroscience, and I was studying adhesion molecules, which are basically signaling molecules between cells. And they're how cells communicate, and they're important in every single aspect of the body, not only the immune system, but the nervous system, which I was studying at the time, the skin, all over. We have signaling molecules, and that's how our cells communicate. And in my research, I discovered that there were some of these adhesion molecules that were responsible for viruses getting into cells. So they were like the doorway that viruses use to get into cells. And I thought that was really interesting because I always thought that it's really interesting to make connections between, disparate things. And then when you start drilling down into the basic science of it, it's not really that disparate. There's commonalities in a lot of things in nature. And so, I kept that kind of in the back of my mind. And, fast forward a couple years later, we were going through one of the influenza epidemics, one of the bird flu epidemics. And my husband and I were thinking about, there has to be a way that you can prevent yourself from getting sick. And this was like way before COVID. And it was way before masks were commonplace. But still, the idea was there that there should be a way that we can protect ourselves. And, I remembered these adhesion molecules, and I started looking into that. And then I also was really pleasantly surprised to learn that we have natural defenses in our nose and throat that can protect us. And that's why some people are more prone to getting sick than others. And so initially, our idea was to make an antiviral that would protect us. And those are still in development at our company. But then as we started researching more and more into it and the symptoms that cause sickness, Biovanta came about. And we'll talk all about that, and as well, because that involves inflammation and the whole cold and flu industry and how they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was basically our jumping off point.
So you mentioned that we have these entryways, the nasal passage, the throat passage. Which part of the immune system is responsible for that entryway?
Yeah, so there's entryways in terms of into our bodies as a whole, which are the nasal passages and the mouth. But there's also entryways in the cells for the viruses to get in. And those are the molecules that they use as receptors. So we've heard of the ACE2 receptor for COVID.
Yeah.
There are other receptors for influenza and rhinovirus, which causes a common cold. So every single virus that's going to make you sick, the first thing it has to do is bind to a receptor and get inside the cell where it can start multiplying. And that starts the process of you getting sick. But if it could never enter the cell in the first place, it would never infect and you wouldn't get sick.
So the goal is to stop it before it even gets to the cell and enters the cell.
Yes.
And that would be taking care of those passageways.
Yes, it would be.
That'd be part of it.
Yeah, it would be part of it for sure. Yeah. So if you wear a mask, you're essentially, preventing it from getting in your nose. But if you have something else, that you can use in your nose and throat to boost, your body's defense, then all the better. I mean, you can use that instead of a mask or with a mask or however you choose. But we do have natural defenses that our body used to intercept the virus before it can bind to those receptors. And what we do with Biovanta and with our other products that are in development is we help the body build up its defenses to do that.
So with what's happening out there in the over-the-counter flu and cold medicine, what are some of the dark secrets out there that you've seen that you wanted to develop a solution to that with Biovanta? What are people doing unknowingly, probably, when they take these standard over-the-counter cold and flu remedies?
So these standard over-the-counter cold and flu remedies have been grandfathered in the regulatory landscape of the FDA since the 1950s. And when they were developed, we didn't know any better. And, to put it in perspective, DNA wasn't even discovered yet. So we didn't know about genes or anything. And, people just knew that they took these things. These common ingredients are dextromethorphan, guaifenesin, pseudoephedrine, phenylephrine, which recently just got banned, actually.
Oh, did it? No,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's caused a huge stir. But even so, people still want it. I have no idea why. So they got grandfathered, and then the FDA allowed them to make certain claims, which, are in bold letters on their box: cold and flu symptoms, relief, and people see that and they think, okay, it must work. But, the regulatory landscape is very slow. And science is slow too, but science is faster in the regulatory landscape, believe it or not. And so the science is out there that these things don't work. They've been studied, for decades in randomized clinical trials, and they don't work. When you test them in scientific studies, most of them don't even lower symptoms that they say that they lower, but they don't reduce the duration of sickness either. So, this has been known for a very long time. So something new is needed, and that's what we're hoping to do.
So they don't work is what you're saying. So I don't know if I'm allowed, if you want me to say certain products out there, maybe I won't list the certain brands, but when they're going to Walgreens, going to CVS, going to whatever pharmacy, supermarket, Publix, etc., and they see this certain brand, cold and flu relief symptoms, you will get a relief from your symptoms, whatever claims they're making. You're saying the majority of these claims are false. Like when you actually test them out, you're not getting those benefits. It's just a facade, and they're still catching up with this. Eventually, they'll catch up, and you'll see that it's a facade. That the regulations will catch up with what's going on here.
Yeah, and that's I realize it's a bold statement, so I'm gonna give you a little more detail.
Yeah, yeah, please.
And then people can do their research and see that I'm not making it up. Okay, so if you just Google dextromethorphan clinical trials, they'll come up, or same thing, guaifenesin, which is the main ingredient in Mucinex, clinical trials. You'll see. So immediately when you take these things, you will feel something. So you'll, like with guaifenesin, for example, people use it as a decongestant. Immediately, your nose will, start running. You'll be able to blow your nose more easily, but then you're going to have a rebound effect. And long term, if you study this during the course of a day, even one day or multiple days, and it's been studied in clinical trials where, doctors or nurses took the weight of the mucus amount that was released by people after they were taking guaifenesin or a placebo, and there was no difference. There's no difference in what they call sputum volume, with these drugs. It just immediately has an effect, but then it doesn't do anything. There's a rebound. That's because it doesn't address the underlying inflammation. So what happens when you get congested is that you have an inflammatory reaction that your body's actually, it's protective. Your body's trying to protect you from the virus infecting, or the virus has already infected, but it's trying to protect you from more viruses getting into the cells. So it's secreting mucus, which has very powerful molecules such as lactoferrin and lysozyme, which are two molecules that we have in our product, that are there to intercept the virus. So this is your body's way of protecting itself. Sometimes the inflammation might be, too much, but then your body will naturally adjust. But the definite thing is it's not good to take guaifenesin. It's already been shown that it doesn't work, and it doesn't do anything to the inflammation.
And that one's in Mucinex, you said?
Yeah.
Calling out Mucinex, do better. Interesting. Okay, and I want to understand. I want my audience to understand more regarding the immune system and the innate versus the adaptive immune system. So I'd love for you to get into that.
Yeah, sure. So another. Could I just say one more thing about another ingredient?
Yeah, please call them out. Okay. Call them out. If you have more, expose them. Do it, Dr. Nazlie.
Another thing I want to talk about is acetaminophen, which is in Tylenol. So people, and the ironic thing is that it's in a lot of cold products.
Yes.
And people often associate it with fever. So yes, it will reduce your fever, but it also, acetaminophen has no anti-inflammatory properties whatsoever. And in fact, it will actually deplete glutathione levels in your liver. So
Tylenol is doing that.
Yeah, Tylenol is doing that.
I knew it was destroying the liver. I didn't know it was depleting glutathione to that level.
Yeah, and you need these antioxidants to help you get better. So,
to your point, that's the master antioxidant, glutathione.
Yes, exactly. And so now getting into the innate and adaptive immune system. So that's all related to inflammation as well, because inflammation is a tiered system. So first, if your body senses a threat, you need a little bit of inflammation to. Inflammation is your body's way of protecting itself. It's saying, okay, we need help here. We need to contain. One cell has been infected. We need to contain it. We need to stop it from spreading. So it sends in immune cells, which the way that it sends in the immune cells is with inflammation. Inflammation is cytokines, signals that it sends to that help the immune cells get in.
Are the dendritic cells one of the first line of cells that are sent?
Yes, exactly right. Yes, and the dendritic cells line your nose and throat, and so they're one of the first cells one of the first responders that respond. And what you want to do is you want to really strengthen your innate immune system, because that's the first line of defense. And if that doesn't work, then the inflammation is just going to get more and more and more, to the point where, you're getting more and more symptoms. And the symptoms are the result of inflammation. So you want to keep the inflammation to a minimum, but you want to keep your body's response to a maximum. So it's really like a fine, a fine-tuned thing. And so, and so the adaptive immune system kicks in later, and that involves antibodies. So when you get vaccines, they boost your adaptive immune system because they teach your body to make antibodies to that specific virus. The thing with that is that it kicks in a few days to a week after you're already sick. So that's the reason that people can get vaccines and still get sick. They probably won't get as critically sick because the antibodies are there, but they still will get sick, at least mild symptoms. So,
can the body create those antibodies without getting vaccinated?
Yes, sure, for sure. Yes, it just the vaccines just speed up the process. But the key, I think, is really to strengthen the first response, which is the innate immune response, and that's what Biovanta does.
That is it, right? That's the goal. If you could strengthen that first line of defense, those dendritic cells, the innate immune system, you don't have to worry about the other stuff that you just spoke about. Now,
Right.
If you happen to get to that point, it's important to understand what you just said. Mm-hmm. So Biovanta, let's talk about this. Then I want to get into some mistakes people make with the immune system and some other cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to take a minute to share something with you as we take a break from the video you're watching. One of the most common things I see to why people don't have enough energy levels, they have trouble building lean muscle mass, they have brain fog, fatigue, and they don't feel good is because of a deficiency in a hormone called testosterone. Now, testosterone is a very important hormone to have in a healthy amount for both men and for women. So how do you reclaim your vitality? How do you reclaim this very important fat burning and muscle building hormone? Well, you can do it with a powerful supplement called Upgraded T. It has been my go-to for naturally elevating testosterone levels. Upgraded T is from Upgraded Formulas, and it contains the highest quality of ingredients that have been proven scientifically to increase testosterone production. Now, as I mentioned, if you're a woman watching this is very important for you just as a man watching this right now. Upgraded T is a natural and safe way to boost testosterone levels. When you boost testosterone levels, it's going to increase your sex drive, vitality. It could help replace fatigue with all-day energy. It'll help you lose that stubborn belly fat. Testosterone is required for fat burning, so it'll help you with the last 5 to 10 pounds that you're looking to lose. It helps you be in a better mood, helps with your memory and focus. So here's the 3-step approach. Step 1, take 2 capsules of Upgraded Tea with water every morning. It does not break your fast. You can have it with food or without food. Step number 2, notice your energy levels and dominate your day with more confidence and more vitality. Step number 3, wake up the next day having better sleep and just keep doing what you're doing. As simple as that. So if you want to get your hands on Upgraded Formulas, Upgraded Tea, and any of their awesome products like their Upgraded Magnesium and their hair mineral analysis testing kit, head over to upgradedformulas.com. And if you use the coupon code KETOSIS at checkout, they're going to give you 15% off your entire order. That is upgradedformulas.com. Ketosis at checkout. We're going to drop that link down below. And let's get back to today's video. You sent me a whole bunch of your products. And if you're watching on YouTube, holding it up here, I have a whole bunch of them. And Dr. Nazlie, I just traveled to Park City, as you know, a few days ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was hanging out with Dr. Pampa, and I knew it was going to be cold, and I knew that it was going to be a really busy week with a lot of speaking. And I got back, and I knew I was speaking. I was at a different conference this weekend here in Miami. So I knew I wanted to take care of that first line of defense, that innate immune system. So I took your products with me, and I had the lozenges, which I think is right here. These are lozenges that I just took on the airplane with me. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to just pop one right now. So I wanted to take care of this mucosal barrier, this innate immune system. So I took this with me. I took your other products with me. I took the spray, which is an immune supporting spray. And I did pretty good. I didn't get sick at a time. Yesterday, actually, I woke up and I looked at my Oura ring, and it showed that my heart rate variability was down and my resting heart rate was up and my body temperature was up a little bit. I'm like, uh-oh, is it catching up to me? So I just kept taking your products, and I woke up this morning and all my stuff went back to normal. So your products made a difference for me, and I want you to share a little bit more about the different things I have here and where they can get it, because I know it's all over the place too.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really glad it helped you. We actually did a clinical trial on our product, which hopefully is going to be published soon. We've submitted it for peer review.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm glad it helped you. I'm not surprised because we've been researching it for 10 years, and we have those natural molecules, lysozyme and lactoferrin, as well as menthol and aloe vera, and it's a unique formula that works together.
And by the way, I had Dr. Pompa do the spray, and he actually liked it. He liked the menthol, the wintergreen, the way that it tasted. I liked it too. I liked the way this tasted. He liked it too. Just wanted to share that with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have the immunity line, which you just opened. And that's more like a protective, early phase. If you're feeling like initial symptoms, take that. And then
can you also sorry to cut you off,
Sure.
but can you also take it even if you don't feel symptoms, just as a
actually, I was just going to say that.
prophylactically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just a general anti-inflammatory. So, you never know when you have too much inflammation, and it's good to just keep on top of it, to keep taking it.
Yeah, like when you travel.
Yeah, like when you travel, even if you don't feel anything, it's a daily, it's completely like a daily supplement type of thing. But if you do get sick, it's also powerful enough to help you. And then, so that's the immunity line. And then we have another line, which right now it's called the new and improved line, but we're probably going to change the name to call it like a more of a multi-symptom relief. But it's more if you start to get more actively sick and you start to feel like, okay, maybe I'm going to get a headache or a fever or something, so it's more of a more systemic, because it has natural aspirin as well. There's a natural aspirin tablet, which aspirin is actually anti-inflammatory, which is why we use it, and it's naturally derived, and aspirin works exactly on the specific inflammatory pathway that causes cold and flu symptoms. So that's why we, and so plants actually make aspirin as an antiviral defense.
Do they?
Yeah.
What's the amount of aspirin in that product?
So this product has, I believe, 325 milligrams in each tablet, which is a fairly low dose.
Yeah.
Because we did a scientific study, and it was actually published in a peer-reviewed journal, that if you make the aspirin dose too high, then you actually increase inflammation. So
Interesting. So that's a small amount where you're not getting the increase of inflammation.
Yeah.
Does aspirin also help with vasodilation? Do you know anything about that?
I don't think so. I think though it does act on the platelets though.
It does.
Yeah. So your red blood cells, it helps them flow better. And also, it is protective for colon cancer as well. There's a lot of really cool uses for aspirin, especially at low doses.
Then you have the spray. I like this one because when I went to the conference over the weekend, also when I traveled with it, I just pull it out and just spray it down my throat. So talk about this one here.
Yeah, so that has our immune complex, lysozyme, lactoferrin, aloe, as well as wintergreen oil and menthol. The wintergreen oil and menthol have So they have like vapor compounds that you can actually inhale too, even though you're spraying it in your nose and throat, and which is also helpful. There is some research that there are receptors for these vaporized compounds that can help boost your immunity as well. But the key really is in our complex, the lysozyme, lactoferrin, and aloe, which we studied on our in our laboratories for many, many years. So they basically, like the dendritic cells and the other cells lining your macrophages, they help boost your immunity and your first line of defense in that respect.
The clinical study that you have coming out, can you share a little bit about the details of it? I know you can't give away everything yet, but could you just share a little bit about what you're doing with the study?
Oh, yeah, sure. So it's very exciting. We had very exciting results. By the second day, people saw marked reduction in symptoms, more than 60%.
These are people that were actively fighting something.
Yeah. So they were actively sick. They were volunteers, and we reached out to them on social media, and they responded that they were actively sick. And it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, so they didn't know what they were getting. Everything looked the same, if it was placebo or treatment. The doctors didn't even know what the people were getting. And so, we were really taken aback on how powerfully it worked. And nothing has been shown to work nearly as well. Even ibuprofen, which is the closest thing, it's been studied, and I think it decreased symptoms by 30% or so. So our decrease in symptoms was pretty remarkable.
That is remarkable. Yeah, I can't wait to see when that comes out. You said about 60% on day 2?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, so the products are called Biovanta, Biovanta. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, we're going to drop a link for you to get it on their website. The good thing about getting it on their website is that you could find all the availability of the different products you mentioned and other ones as well. Plus, we have a coupon code for you, which is Keto Kamp. We'll reference down below. But outside of that, they're also available all over the place. And I know Publix, I'm a South Floridian guy, and I love Publix. They're in 700 plus Publixes, correct?
Yep. 700 plus Publix.
Out of like 1,000 something Publix. So the majority of the Publixes have it. Biovanta.
Yeah, so they're like something like 1,100 or so Publix, and we're in about 700 of them.
It's fantastic. Any other like major retail stores?
Yes, we're also in CVS, Walgreens, I believe, Mother's Market, and some others. But the best way to get our products is on the website, because we control the delivery process, and we're also sold on Amazon. But sometimes the stores run out of stock, and we're not in every single store. So that frustrates people sometimes. But, given that you can take these every day, and you should, and, inflammation is a problem no matter what, we really encourage that, you should try it and have it on hand.
There's many ways to get it. Look, I think it's important to just have it on stock, like in your cabinet, just because you don't want to wait to get sick to start looking for things to buy. You'll end up probably buying something unhealthy for you. So if you do happen to go to CVS or Publix and they have this, like, go get it, but definitely go online and look at their products and just stock up on that. And if you travel, take it with you. Like whenever I'm going to Tennessee in 2 weeks, I'm going to take some more with me. Whenever you're going to be at a conference where a lot of people are there and you want to just support the immune system, take it with you. On the note of the immune system, I hear a lot of people saying you want to boost your immune system. And is that actually true? Do we want to boost the immune system, or do we want to balance and support it? What is a better way to understand this?
Yeah, I think a better way is to definitely balance and support it. But when we're talking about the innate immune system, we definitely want to boost it. And I think when people talk about boosting the immune system, they really are talking about the innate immune system, because there is no way to like say, okay, let me boost my antibody production. I mean, the only really way to do that is a vaccine, right? So, which, we already know. But when people say, okay, boost my immune system, like with supplements and things like that, they're really talking about the innate immune system. They're really talking about the dendritic cells, your first line of defense, because they don't really want to get sick to begin with, right?
Makes sense. So now let me ask you a follow-up question to that. If that is the case, taking these supplements, doing different things to boost the immune system, the innate response, is that something we want to do all the time, or is it better to kind of do it cyclically, kind of take the foot off the pedal and then put it back? And because do we always want to be boosting that innate immune system?
I think we do, because I think we do because it's always working no matter what. So, like with Biovanta, for example, it's boosting your innate immune system, but you're still being exposed to, because it's important to like be exposed to some degree to pathogens and stuff, so that your immune system can keep working, because otherwise, according to the hygiene hypothesis, you're more likely to get allergies, or you won't be it won't be as primed.
So you don't want to live in a bubble, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to.
Don't be the bubble boy, like in Seinfeld. Remember Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Bubble boy.
Exactly.
So so you always want to expose yourself to the outside world that builds immunity, and you're okay with taking something that boosts the immune system every day. I'm always a fan of just cyclical things where some days you take it, some days you don't. I like to kind of take the foot off the pedal sometimes.
Yeah, I do that too. I do that too with my supplements.
Okay.
Actually, as well.
Me too. Yeah.
But it is safe enough to take every day. But it's not going to, it's not going to complete. It's not like being in a bubble or like wearing a mask. So the analogy I like to use is, people, let's say with COVID, the people that, were asymptomatic, as they called it, they were exposed to COVID. They just didn't exhibit symptoms, and that's a great example of their innate immune system. So they were exposed to the virus,
but it never got to the cell.
They made antibodies, but it never got to the point of like full blown symptoms. So,
have you had COVID?
I did twice. Yeah.
Me too, twice. How did it go for you?
Well, the second time was pretty horrible because I was in Alaska for a wedding, and
Ooh.
Yeah, and I was on a plane coming home.
Oh no.
So it was just not a pleasant experience. But the first time was okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the second time was worse, especially when you're traveling. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got it twice too. First time was okay as well. Second time was worse for me. I got it, and then I actually got it from Dr. Pompa.
Oh, really?
I was in Utah. This is a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I was in Utah, and he had it. We were at a mastermind. He gave it to me. Traveled back home. Actually got it right when we got back home. I started to get symptoms, and then I gave it to Natasha. But I didn't have Biovanta at that time, so I had some supplements that I took, like high dose vitamin C to tolerance and different things. But I got a really high fever. My fever actually went to 104.5.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very high. Probably shouldn't have just let it ride out, but I did. For a day that was that high, and then my body regulated itself. But I would say I was banged up for 4 days, and on day 5 I was back to normal. But it was pretty rough for 4 days for me. But I'm always a believer of the innate intelligence and letting it do its thing. Now, I understand a really high fever is really dangerous. Like, don't get me wrong. I chose to ride it out. I'm not giving you permission to do the same. I think I would have probably been better off if I had your products. But, I always think the body is well equipped to handle things as long as we live a healthy lifestyle that doesn't incorporate all these inflammatory things. I don't know what your thought process is on that, but that's the way I usually look at it.
Yeah, I recently did a podcast with Dr. Phil Avadia, and we talked about...
Love Phil. Yeah, he's actually coming back here in April. We got him coming here.
Oh, very cool.
He's going to be sitting right there where you are.
Very cool. And we talked about fever, and he said that they don't even... he was taught in medical school not even to treat fever until it's 101. So, I mean, again, not medical advice.
Yeah,
but,
we're not telling you what to do. Just This is just opinion here.
But he is a medical doctor, and
That's right.
and if you do take something in fever, that's why we put the aspirin in the Biovanta drug line. So this new and improved Biovanta, which has the aspirin, is classified as an over-the-counter drug because of the aspirin. And that's why we chose to use aspirin, is because it's a fever reducer, but it's also anti-inflammatory. So you need both. And like going back to Tylenol, if you have a fever and you have a cold, you don't want to take Tylenol because you don't want to. That's one time that you definitely do not want to deplete your glutathione. You want to keep your glutathione because you need those antioxidants. You need the repair molecules. So you have the inflammation that your body goes through to protect you and to get the immune cells activated, because you need inflammation for immune activation. But then you also need repair. And so you need the glutathione and the antioxidants for repair, because once you damage yourself, you need repair, just like exercise. You exercise and your body needs to repair. Same thing when it's fighting an infection. It needs to damage the infected cells, but then it needs to repair. So aspirin is, just has that fine balance, especially when it's paired with the immune spray and lozenges, which have the immune complex, which strengthen the respiratory barrier, because the respiratory barrier is where it's all happening. That's where the infected cells are, and those are those resident immune cells, the dendritic cells and macrophages, is what you need to strengthen.
Damn. So people taking Tylenol, they're depleting their glutathione and they're making themselves worse. Don't do it. This is not medical advice, but don't do it.
Don't do it.
So, you're referring to good inflammation. You call it like the resolving factors that take place after that initial inflammatory response. And let's talk more about inflammation. I think a lot of people don't really understand that inflammation can be really beneficial when your body adapts to it. This is called hormesis, right? The principle of hormesis, the principle of adaptation. And I think a lot of people violate this principle in the biohacking space, Dr. Nazlie. Mm-hmm. We know that things like fasting, cold therapy, like the cold plunging, red light therapy, sauna, these are all eliciting an inflammatory response. They're igniting an inflammatory response, but then your body adapts to it. These resolving factors you talk about, and you get stronger and healthier, unless you do too much fasting, you do too much cold plunge, you do too much sauna, whatever it is. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your thought process behind inflammation and why it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. So I actually took a spinning class for a while, and I wish I could give a shout out to the instructor, but right now I'm forgetting his name because it was like before COVID and all these things happened. But he would really he was really, really, really intelligent on, wellness and overall health and everything. And he would give advice during the spin class. And at that time, like at one point I was really doing hardcore, spinning and high intensity interval training, like multiple times a week, like 3-4 times a week. And, he really went through the whole mechanism of this whole repair, and why, he's like, if you guys are going this hard more than once or twice a week, you're not going to see benefits. You're doing too much.
What a smart guy.
Yeah. He would go through like the heart rate and how, the VO2 max, and how if you're doing it right, you can only sustain it for like I think it's like 5 to 8 minutes or something. And, he would really encourage you to go hardcore, but, he would say like, you shouldn't be able, if you're sustaining it for too long, then you're not going hard enough. And you should only go this hard, once or twice a week. You don't need it more than that. And that's exactly right. I mean, it made intuitive sense to me. And then I researched it, and it's totally true. I mean, because your body needs time to repair. Otherwise you're going through too much stress. And something I talked about when I was on with Brett and Harry is we talked about marathon runners, how they tend to get sick. Yeah. After a marathon. And I mean,
that's it. Too much inflammation, weaken the immune system.
Yeah.
Same thing with cold exposure. People who do too much get sick too.
Oh, wow.
I had Dr. Rob, I was speaking with him over the weekend, and he told me he had 3 patients in the last 90 days that suffered a stroke from too much cold exposure. 3 patients. It's just
crazy.
And I'm not saying cold exposure is bad. I'm not saying,
Right.
we're not saying running is bad or cycling is bad. We're saying there's a sweet spot for it. To your point, to that guy's point, the instructor, like if you're going to go really hard and create that inflammatory response, that should be short term. And then you want enough time to recover. I used to own a CrossFit gym here in Miami many years ago, and I saw the same thing. People coming in and doing CrossFit workouts 7 days a week. And I was like, that's not going to be beneficial. You want time to recover and repair, which is what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, since I actually scaled down my workouts, and I haven't gained weight, anything.
You have not gained weight.
I have not gained weight.
Yeah.
Like I lost weight because at some point, like when I found that when I work out too much, I actually gain weight because it's like your body puts on fat to protect itself, right? It's a protective mechanism. If you're feeling good and not stressed, I think like putting on fat is a stress response, right? So if your body's feeling good and not stressed, then you'll be more relaxed. Maybe like some people just need to scale down.
Most people do, especially in the biohacking space. One of the things I teach my students, my Keto Kamp Academy students, is to, of course, pay attention to how you feel the rest of the day after like a stressor like that, whether it's cold plunge or exercise, whatever it is. How do you feel the rest of the day? How did you sleep that night? Mm-hmm. But also track heart rate variability. Like I track it with my Oura Ring, but heart rate variability is a good gauge to see how well your nervous system is adapting to the sympathetic stress, how well you're balancing out with the parasympathetic. And if you get your average heart rate variability and you see it declining, that means you're doing too much stress. You want to see that increase over time. So if you have a day where you wake up and you see an above average heart rate variability, that's a good day to push it in the cycling room, in the cycling class. It's a good day to do your cold plunge, whatever stressor it is. But HRV is a great gauge for that.
Yeah, I definitely, I want to get an Oura Ring or start tracking with an Apple Watch.
You would love
or
it.
Something. Yeah, I definitely want to start doing that. It's definitely on my to-do list.
Yeah, definitely get an Oura Ring. It's fun. All right, I have some more questions for you. I want to ask you a few things about the biggest mistakes people make, the 5 biggest mistakes people make when trying to improve their immune system. What are the mistakes people are making?
So I think some of the biggest mistakes people are making when they're trying to improve their immune system is by not really having a balance, like what we discussed. Because I think when you think about your immune system, you kind of have to think about your daily habits, because it's not really, it's something that your body is calibrating. And so when you're faced with a threat, your body is calibrating, how do I respond to this threat? So it needs to be in a state, a healthful state to begin with. But did you have any particular questions, like particular examples of what people do? Like,
well, one of them is definitely getting Tylenol. Don't do that.
Yeah. Definitely don't get Tylenol. And what else do you think people?
How? So what about the factor of mental stress when it comes to the immune system? Are people not aware of how powerful mental stress could be to influence the immune system?
Yeah, I think so. Because when you have mental stress, you have a lot of cortisol. And cortisol is highly inflammatory, and it also hijacks your immune system. So it's definitely something that is going to be detrimental. Also, just along the lines of stress. I mean, if you're stressed out about your immune system, that's stress, right?
That's true. Don't stress about the stress of your immune system.
Yeah. So don't stress. Just do the best you can. And, it's inevitable. Like we're going to get sick, right? So, if seeing people that try to like create a bubble for themselves in life, it's just not.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
I mean, isn't it important to even like? I remember interviewing Dr. Lori Bouchard. She's a doctor. She focuses on cancer. She has a book about breast cancer. She actually likes when people get sick once or twice every year or so, because it gives the immune system something to work on. Now, she's not saying you should get destroyed from feeling sick, but having something that makes your immune system go to work she thinks is important for preventing cancer. At least that's her opinion. What are your thoughts on the relationship between getting sick once a year or once every other year as it helps the immune system just function better?
I definitely agree with that.
You do?
Yeah, I totally.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because I mean, you need to sort of like, for lack of a better word, exercise your immune system. I mean, right? It needs to like kind of be primed.
Got to get those dendritic cells to work.
Exactly.
The generals.
Exactly.
Get them working.
The first line of defense, yes. And I mean, so yeah, the hygiene hypothesis, you know, if people are raised in too much of a sterile environment, then, you know, they're more prone to get allergies. So yeah, I mean, there's two types of immunity. Scientists, immunologists call it Th1 and Th2. And the Th1 immunity is more, it evolved to deal with intracellular pathogens like viruses and bacteria. And the Th2 evolved to deal with parasites, so extracellular pathogens. But if you imagine, like, you know, you're infected with a parasite, your body wants to kind of wall off that parasite. So it creates, for example, like eczema is an example of Th2, or asthma, overactivity in the respiratory tract because it's trying to wall off. But they also kind of balance each other out, so that you do need the Th2 because it also helps to repair the damage from the Th1. So when you first get like a virus, you're going to have damage because your body's trying to isolate those cells or kill the cells that have been infected. But then the Th2 comes in to repair that damage. And so, so you always need to have this balance. And so people that are raised in too much of a hygienic environment or worry too much about being sterile, which that's the biggest mistake, I would say, to answer your question about mistakes people make, is to be overly sterile, is then you're going into more of a Th2 with your immune system, and you're going to be more prone to getting allergies. So
is that, to give an example for my audience, is that somebody who's like constantly using Lysol, antibacterial, hand wash, like nonstop? They're not outside. They're not allowing themselves to get exposed to anything. That sort of person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ziggy?
That's that sort of person. Come here, Ziggy.
Ziggy, say hi. We're talking about the immune system. You have a healthy immune system. Yeah, you do. Okay, let's continue.
So you see, pets are really good because they go and they walk around everywhere, and you know,
that's true.
So they expose you to a good level, you know, of things that you need. And so
you heard
that have pets have less allergies.
You heard it here,
except if you're allergic to the fur.
Yeah, that's a different story. But you heard it here from Dr. Nazlie. Pets help with the immune system. It makes sense too, not just outside of what you just shared about them bringing in stuff from the environment and helping, you know, with the immune system, but the fact that like having a pet lowers stress.
Yes.
Having a pet boosts oxytocin. Like you just said, cortisol destroys the immune system. It really does.
Yes.
You know who Dr. Bruce Lipton is? Are you familiar with his work?
Biology
of Belief. So I had him on my podcast, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And we were talking about the immune system, and he was making the reference that one of the quickest ways to lower immunity is to be in a stressful, fearful state. And he made the analogy, the comparison of individuals who are getting a kidney transplant. And in you know, right before that procedure, the surgeon who's about to perform that procedure of you know, giving that person a new kidney, they inject the patient with stress hormones because it really completely like lowers their immune system so they could accept that foreign object, which is the kidney, right? So he made the example that when you live in stress, it's essentially the same thing. You're like taking the injection of cortisol, lowering the immune system, and it just causes your immune system to go to sleep. So to your point, like cortisol, mental stress, living in fear, that's not going to help your immune system. It's doing the complete opposite.
Yeah, so I think we just got to the answer. The biggest mistake is living in fear, having all the Lysol, spraying everything, too much hand sanitizer. You know, I mean, a little bit's okay.
A little bit's okay. Find a balance that works for you. Don't live in a bubble. Don't be that kid from Seinfeld. Don't be him. What about vitamin C? You know, I have I have people who think vitamin C, I know there's ascorbic acid, then there's real whole food source vitamin C like camu. But what are your thoughts on vitamin C as it relates to the immune system? Pros, cons?
I love vitamin C.
Okay.
And I get my vitamin C from kiwis.
Do you eat the
from
skin?
oranges.
Do you eat the skin of the kiwis too?
No.
Okay.
I
Some
heard
people
that
do.
my husband does. I don't. But I heard that it has many other things. I think vitamin C is amazing. But I think it's best to get it from food because it's way better absorbed from food. It's one of those things that that I don't know. We know that it's really better absorbed with food. But also, I mean, if you want to take supplements, that's fine, but just make it part of your daily routine because it's also been studied in clinical trials, and it doesn't work once you're sick. So you should Google. Google vitamin C, clinical study, cold symptoms, and it's inconclusive at best.
So once you're symptomatic, it doesn't matter if you take vitamin C. Can it hurt you?
No, I mean,
but you're just wasting your money.
Yeah.
Or time.
I mean, because there's a lot of like fancy, formulations of vitamin C and this and that, and it's just it's not proven.
And the issue, I mean, I love what you said about you prefer to get it from whole food because the issue with most vitamin C in terms of like supplements, most of them, it contains ascorbic acid, which is the synthetic version, which is not ideal, right? But if you get it from kiwi, orange, or I like it from like camu.
But that's best.
Yeah, that's the highest, right?
Yeah.
So acerola cherry, et cetera. Like that's best, but I didn't know that. You want to do it prophylactically, and then when you're actually symptomatic, it's not really going to matter. So do it prophylactically. So vitamin C, great. Okay, vitamin D. What about that?
Vitamin D, same thing. I mean, vitamin D is a little bit different because it takes, so vitamin C is water soluble. So, when you take it, it'll get absorbed, but still it's not going to help you when you're sick. But vitamin D is it's fat soluble. It's something that it's going to take a while to get into your body. So that's even more of a reason you just need to take it long term. And, the best way to get it is from the sun or from actually animal fats. So there's a theory that, and I think there's a lot of evidence for it actually too, that the reason that, our immunity is going down and, we have inflammation, all that, one of the reasons is that people are eating less animal fat. How people in Nordic countries in Northern Hemisphere, how they survive and, keep their health despite having less sunlight is through eating a lot of animal fat. So, cheese, fatty meats. Eggs.
Fatty fish.
Fatty fish. Yeah, I mean, all the
olive oil.
The fatty fish come from the cold waters.
Yeah, that's true.
So, so it's animal fats have a lot of vitamin D. And another good way to get vitamin D, which is really cool, is mushrooms.
Yeah. The sunlight, right?
Yeah. So mushrooms can absorb vitamin D if you turn them upside down. And it doesn't matter what hemisphere you live in because they're more sensitive than our skin is. And if you turn them upside down and leave them outside for like a day or half a day, and then eat them, that's a way to get vitamin D. But what's interesting is that if you live below I think it's like the 30th parallel of latitude, which is around the latitude of LA. If you live anywhere above that, no matter what you do, you will not be able to get enough vitamin D unless it's the summer. So
like you in New York City, it's got to be the summer.
So I'm making plans to move.
We already had so many of you New Yorkers come down to Miami last few years. I don't know if we have more room. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so anywhere north of LA, gotta wait really till the summer to get that vitamin D.
Yeah, it's like around LA, but anywhere if you're below that, you're all year round, you're good. So like in the winter, walking around, you're not going to be getting.
And you know what else, Dr. Nazlie? There's a hormone in our body that actually blocks vitamin D production, even if it is the summer. That hormone is actually insulin. Those who have insulin resistance have low vitamin D levels no matter how much sun they get and how much mushrooms they eat, because high insulin levels actually blocks that first step from vitamin D getting produced. So another reason not to be insulin resistant. Unfortunately, most people are, but you get all the sunshine you want and eat all the fish you want. But if you have high levels of insulin, you're still gonna see low levels of vitamin D in your blood. It isn't until you dial that down that you'll see it go up. There's always that inverted relationship there.
Is that even if they're on
supplementation
or medication for like diabetes medication?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because diabetes, well, it depends on the medication they're taking, right? But they're usually taking insulin, which is not going to help the problem here, or they're taking something to force the glucose out, which is still not getting to the problem of high insulin levels. So it's still, if they're on medication, usually the problem still occurs. It isn't until you actually lower those endogenous insulin levels. And you could only do that by practicing keto, intermittent fasting, exercise, etc. You have to actually make the lifestyle changes. Unfortunately, you can't just take a drug to do it.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is, but that's our mission to, educate people, to help them hey, the body could adapt though. It could definitely lower those insulin levels. All right, vitamin C, great, from Whole Foods. Vitamin D, great, but get it from the sun. Most importantly, lower insulin levels. That's my tip. Quercetin and zinc. Thoughts on those?
So same thing with zinc, even though it's really popular in a lot of cold remedies, promising to make you better. Same thing. It's been studied. It doesn't work.
Once you're sick.
Got
it. But can it help to prevent?
Yeah. It's so long-term as part of your daily routine.
To boost that innate response?
Yes.
Okay.
It's definitely good for you. Quercetin is interesting. So quercetin is anti-inflammatory. But quercetin is just, it's tricky because if you take too much of it, again, it could be inflammatory. It's one of those things. But a good source of quercetin is red onions. So I definitely would incorporate that into my diet. And I'm a big fan of getting things from food when possible.
Me too. So in this scenario, you would have like the ideal meal here, just based off of what you shared. You would have some wild-caught salmon with sauteed in mushrooms, olive oil, and red onions. And then for dessert, you'd have a kiwi or an orange. What a great, amazing immune-supporting meal, right?
And even you could have some ice cream because it's like fatty. Well, so not too much. Not too much of it. Not too sugar.
A lower sugar, like
lower
whole milk sort of fatty ice cream.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. I love it. I have a final question for you, but before I get to the last question, you might know it because you listen to the podcast. You might know the last question, but before I get to that, just a reminder: if you want to get Bioventa products, go to the link down below in the podcast notes, the YouTube notes. Use the coupon code Keto Kamp to get it online. It's also available at most Publixes, CVS, the other places, Walgreens as well, and it's all over the place. Go get it. Stock up. Make sure you're preventative and you're not reactive, but you're proactive. Last question.
The best place would be our website.
Best place is your website. I agree.
Second best, Amazon.
Second best is, I forgot Amazon.
Minerals, minerals, minerals. You hear a lot of people out there speaking about the benefits of taking minerals. And it is important because in this day and age, our crops, our fruits, and our vegetables, they are depleted of minerals. The crops we have today are very different than the crops we had 10, 20, 30 years ago. And if you're doing a low carbohydrate, keto, carnivore diet with fasting, this is especially important for you because what happens when you lower insulin on these diets and fasting, you're gonna shed a lot of extra water weight, body water weight, which is great. You're gonna feel lighter, look lighter, but the problem is that your kidneys kind of go through this diuresis process where it sheds minerals and electrolytes. So you've heard of the keto flu, you've heard of symptoms doing keto and fasting. People just don't feel good sometimes. This is the number one reason why. So my go-to for replenishing my electrolytes and my minerals, for enhancing my immune system, for gut support, for detoxification is Beam Minerals. I love Beam Minerals because it's simply a liquid I drink every day. It doesn't taste like anything, it tastes like water. And I know I'm replenishing those electrolytes and those minerals. As a matter of fact, it has fulvic and humic compounds, and these have over 70 trace minerals and really important electrolytes to replenish your body with. They have these incredible sprays that I take with me when I play basketball, when I'm on the go. If you have muscle cramps, you spray this directly. They're called the Insta-Light spray. There's also the capsules that I take with me when I travel, the Electro Boost capsules that I take with me to make sure when I'm traveling, I'm supporting the immune system and I'm staying hydrated and my minerals are being replenished. Check out Beam Minerals over at beamminerals.com. Use the coupon code Azadi, my last name, at checkout to get a nice discount. That is AZADI at checkout over at beamminerals.com.
Vitamin G, gratitude. Speaking of the immune system, I believe vitamin G could help support that immune system. So it's vitamin G is gratitude. And I want to ask you, Dr. Nazlie, before you hop on a plane in a couple hours to go back to New York City, last question is, what are you grateful for?
I'm just grateful to be able to help people with Bioventa. I'm grateful that, I, feel privileged to be able to spread the word and help make people healthy.
Amen. Yeah, thank God for that, because in a world where people are more aware of their immune system than ever before, thank God for your work and your products. And I'm glad you exposed some of the dark side of Tylenol and these other companies out there, because I agree, they do a lot more harm than good. Their marketing is great, but it's not necessarily helping you. So thank you, Dr. Nazlie. We're going to put your information down below. Anywhere else you want them to go on social media to check you out?
We're on Instagram. We're building up our YouTube.
Smart.
Our website's really good. Our website has all the information that I talked about and links to scientific studies and peer-reviewed research. So, you can fact check anything I said.
Fact check it if you want to. We'll put that down below. We'll put her Instagram below. We'll put your YouTube down below. So go check it out. And thank you for making the trip down to Miami. And I look forward to round 2 already.
Okay. Same. Likewise.
Thank you
you so much.